A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express Papers Chandigarh edition. So you can see the important topics. So first of all, Chandrayaan 3, it is expected to land today. BRICS meeting taking place. So one angle is a possible meeting of Xi Jinping, Chinese president, and Indian Prime Minister. And this meeting could be the way forward to unlock the crisis on the LSE. Besides, there is editorial and opinion section, specifically opinions, on the relevance of the BRICS, how BRICS has been a great disappointment. Right, so two articles on the same. So one is focusing how it is a disappointment, and there is another article that says that BRICS is no NAM, that is non-aligned movement. Then talking about the editorial opinion section, this article is very, very important. That is aging workforce. I have shared it on the Telegram also with the pointers, right? So this is very, very, very important with the view on GS3, socio-economics, anything to do with economics comes under GS3. Then resisting landslides is again one opinion on the editorial section. Other than this, there is one more article from a senior advocate, Supreme Court advocate, which is about the recent amendments to the IPC and the CRPCC. Right, so that also we will cover. Then from the business section, there is a statement from IT Minister regarding Digital Data Protection Bill. So there is a concern expressed on this law that it is providing a lot of exemptions, lot of powers to the central agencies when it comes to management of data. So he's saying, the minister, that the center will subsequently make laws or frame rules which will bring in restrictions or safeguards on the use of data. So that will eventually happen. So center will be doing it. Now this is known as subordinate legislation or delegated legislation. Right. And I would like to tell you one more thing. The issue of increased resort to subordinate legislation and delegated legislation is something of interest from exam point of view, GS2. Then we have the explainer section, which again talks about aging workforce. It tells us how Madras was named. It tells us about some space missions concerning the moon. So again, same things are repeated. Madras one was interesting. I was reading. I thought I'll share it with you. Okay, so landing today. Today is 23rd August. We expect the Vikram lander to land today. Okay, if you remember, I shared with you the ISRO website, the web page, and I told you to study about it, to study the mechanism, plus the things and the instruments that are there on this lander, right? So that is important. Coming to the next one, all eyes on the possible Modi-Xi meeting. Where is this meeting taking place? Possibly at the BRICS summit. And where is the BRICS summit taking place? Johannesburg, South Africa. So possible, the LSE commanders are working on ground, and at the same time, if there is a possibility, if there is some sort of an agreement between Modi and Xi, or signal from the top, so the things may ease up. Okay. Remember the recently passed NCT bill concerning the provisions of the National Capital Territory of Delhi. It also provided for establishment of National Capital Civil Services Authority. So this body has not yet met, and therefore 21 officers postings have been stuck. So you can see how the governance at large is stuck, is compromised, and citizens' interest is compromised because of political standoffs. Okay, we move on. So things are not good when it comes to farmer issue, right? So blockade has been done. So Just a second. Yes. Now we come to the Himachal, what is happening. So Himachal, we know that a lot of disasters, destruction has taken place because of the landslides in particular. So the Himachal minister tenders apology because of previous governments, things have not been good, and they will take bitter and strong steps. Now, this is an example of obviously disaster, and now we are moving on to the next phase of disaster where we are reconstructing now. So, in this regard, I would like to mention there is Sendai framework. There is an international convention known as the Sendai framework, time period 2015 to 2030. This is something that can be taken up for your prelims. So this is the Sendai framework. Sendai is in Japan for disaster risk reduction. And one of the key themes is build back faster. And build back faster in such a way that it focuses on disaster risk reduction. We know Himachal, chances of and landslides are always there. So how we can reduce that risk? There is an article on the opinion section. There we will cover what measures have been mentioned. Okay. Now, here from the bitter and strong steps, I can come up with some ideas. So, one could be bitter, the business is coming from the tourism industry, hotels, etc. So maybe now on, hopefully they focus on town planning and building codes and focus on the carrying capacity of the Himalayas and do not go for that unchecked urbanization, which has ultimately made people more vulnerable. So that has been there. And the minister has also talked about reconstruction, having more roads, having repairing the underground drainage system, which is known as culverts. So there's a passage which allows water underneath this road. This is known as culvert. So here is the image that you can see. So structure to channel water. So probably these were choked, because of which the water has come onto the surface and led to the landslide. One of the reasons. Okay. Next is Sukhu government. Sukhu is the chief minister, right? Sukhvinder. So Sukhu government amends Swarn Jayanti energy policy. You don't have to worry about this. It is basically an agreement between Himachal and Punjab government. Punjab is managing the Beas, the Beas dam. So with this regard, it is telling us as to that there will be an MOU between the two for 40 years. And further, they are going to focus on renewable or hydel energy up to of 10,000 megawatts by 2030. More power will be created. Now, how will this power be created? Obviously, by construction of more dams, etc. So this goes antithetical to what we are saying regarding carrying capacity. So, civil society collective flags data asks if human error led to recent Punjab floods. Remember on the front page, there was an article. Right at the end, I didn't cover because there is a similar article on same topic mentioned over here. So civil society collective known as Public Action Committee, which is concerning the environmental issues in Punjab. So they have raised certain concerns. They are saying that there are these dams like Pong Dam, Bhakra Mangal Dam, etc. So these dams, we had the floods in plain areas. We had floods in plains. We know that water is coming from the mountains, etc. So the dams were filled. Yeah, right. So when the floods take place, the water was discharged and more floods took place as a result of this. Now again, after the first session of the floods that took place, the first phase, again the water was allowed to stagnate over here, and again the water is released and more flooding issue is taking place because suddenly a lot of water is being discharged. Now the civil society collective, these experts have seen the data of inflow and outflow. They are saying that when more water was coming into the dam, they were not releasing the water there and then. So this was leading to more and more water getting collected on the dams. And eventually when it was almost on the brink, almost at the top, then they were releasing. So suddenly a lot of water was being discharged and therefore more and more of floods had taken place. So had this issue Had the outflow been done in a gradual manner, then the situation may have been fine. So possibly, so this is obviously an human error, and possibly we need to have some sort of a policy, especially with reference to floods, etc., as to how this water has to be managed. Some clear guidelines should be there, etc. Now, typical arrangement is that the idea is that during the monsoons, this dam should be allowed to fill so that post this water can be kept released into the river plains for agriculture, etc. Okay. US court stays 26/11 attack accused Rana extradition. What was 26/11? The Mumbai terror attack, 2008. So there is this Pakistan origin businessman known as Tahaur Rana, who was in US, of course. So he is to be extradited to India. So this extradition has been stayed. And in this regard, he was the friend of the Pakistani American terrorist David Coleman Headley. You may have heard the name of it. There was a movie also on the same subject. J&K village with Pakistan occupied Kashmir view, right? So from a border village, you can see the POK site area. So this is attracting tourists. So new tents have come up. Existing bunkers have been are being used as guest houses. Right, so that is happening over here. So some way showing normalization of relations between the two countries. Now with this reference, there is the name of a river known as the Neelam River, which is also known as Kishan Ganga. Kishan Ganga is there in news because of, what should I say, because of the Indus Water Treaty. For that, India wants to build dams on this so Pakistan is objecting to this. Supreme Court polyvocal, it represents diversity. Polyvocal means multiple views, right? Multiple. And it represents diversity means Supreme Court has judges from different places. So that diversity is there, different shades, so that is there. Now here he's saying that the collegium, the institution responsible for appointment of the judges, they keep in mind that diversity of the Supreme Court judges is kept intact. Okay, now this is a good opportunity to revise the appointment of the judges. So the judges are actually appointed by the president, not collegium. So president appoints both at Supreme Court and High Court based on Article 124 and 217 of the Constitution. Would have guessed it right. 124 is Supreme Court, 217 is the High Court. So president appoints. And president appoints based on the recommendations of the collegium, which comprises of the CJI plus 4 senior-most judges of the Supreme Court. Right. Only thing is with 217, the views of the Chief Justice of the concerned High Court has to be taken into account. So that is there. Disruptions fast tracking House towards irrelevance, says the Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar. Okay, so fine. I was not really interested in this. What I would like to bring your attention to the issue of effectiveness of the parliament. I have made a video of it. So I would like to tell you that when we talk about the effectiveness of the parliament, it is one of the issue is disturbance and disruptions, but there are many other issues also. Quality of legislative processes, for instance, the working of the committees. So there are a lot of things associated with the parliamentary functioning that should also come in your answer writing while talking about this. So that's it actually. Supreme Court Supreme Court is saying that it cannot be said that no Article 370 since January 1957. Okay, Article 370, special provisions for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So that was there. Now there is viewpoint, especially amongst the right-wing organizations sector. So, and particularly in this case, Dinesh Dwivedi, who was arguing, he's saying that Article 370 was not really there. It was there in the Constitution, but it is not really in force or effect. Why is he saying? He's saying because there has been lot of changes being made via the presidential orders. So there was an arrangement that was created via Article 370 in 1950s. There was an arrangement that was created, but over the years, through various presidential orders, the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir and the Constitution of India, the laws are more or less consistent, except certain issues like fundamental rights, right to property. So, besides those, more or less, it is consistent. So, the arrangement that was there in Article 370 is more or less does not exist because laws have been kept changing via the presidential order. By the way, presidential order, but it has to be accepted by the State Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. So Supreme Court is saying that if you're saying this presidential order and all those things, amendment is being made, you say that there is no Article 370, that would mean that Indian Constitution had no bearing on Jammu and Kashmir, which cannot be acceptable because the Article 370 is the link which connects through instrument of accession, which connects India and Jammu and Kashmir. So as that would mean that Indian Constitution would not apply to the state of Jammu and Kashmir if Article 370 does not exist. So this view they're saying is untenable. Okay, Leaders Summit in September. So this is there is this organization, basically International Institute for Sustainable Development. You have to read for prelims. It is an independent think tank. That's all they're going to ask you. It's an independent think tank which is saying that G20 countries, so G20 members, have recorded $1.4 trillion to support fossil fuels by means of subsidy and funding petrochemical companies, etc. So they have spent $1.4 trillion for fuels in 2022 alone. Fine, simple. So rather than working on climate change and all those things, they are actually spending more to subsidize to promote the use of fossil fuels. Energy security is a concern. This is a bit of an exaggerated view, actually. Okay. So, yeah. Now, what they are saying that if a very interesting observation, they are making a case for carbon taxation. They are saying if we tax a nominal amount of, let's say, $25 to $75 per ton of CO2 released, then every year these countries can generate $1 trillion in in taxes, in revenues, which can be used for other purposes, maybe transitioning into renewable energy or climate financing, whatever. So that can be used. In India's case, it is mostly to bridge fiscal deficit, as we have seen in the past. Okay. Khadge promises, Khadge's Congress, he promises caste census in Madhya Pradesh if Congress voted to power. So we have one is normal census. Caste census is where census is focusing on the caste. And all those controversial statements, it's been there in some time now, 2016, 2015 onwards. So, but here he's saying, and makes sense, he's saying caste census will allow us to get greater information about people who are poor, backward, landless, uneducated, based on the caste. So this will really help. Now here I can make a case for reservation also on the basis of caste. So if we know based on census the data, so we would really identify that there are certain castes which have cornered from the SC scheduled caste, etc. They have cornered reservations. Maybe it will also lead to rationalization of reservations. Certain castes may be removed, certain castes may be added. Some improvements may be done. So it is actually required. Okay. Now, in this, they are also talking about Sant Ravidas, both BJP as well as Congress. So, Prime Minister Modi has said that he will lay down the foundation of a rupees 100 crore Sant Ravidas temple. He's the god for the important saint for the scheduled caste. Okay, Madhya Pradesh has a significant amount of population, 16% of the population who belongs to the scheduled caste. Now here, from mains point of view, I would like to tell you that Bhakti saints, questions have been asked on Bhakti saints. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shankara Deva, questions have been asked. So why not Sant Ravidas? So you should prepare on it. It is very easy these days to get content, right? So you should prepare a short note on him. So 150 words, you should be ready. If you can just write that much in the exam-like situation, you'll be fine. You'll get marks. Okay. So this is the editorial and the opinion section. So let's come to this first one. By the way, there is an explainer also, so I'll accommodate the views from the explainer as well. So this is concerning the workforce. So when we talk about the workforce in India, when we talk about the workforce, we say that we have a demographic dividend. Demographic dividend means we have more amount of population within the age group of 15 to 64 years. In fact, we have a predominantly youthful population. As Prime Minister said, that majority of our population is below 30 years of age. In fact, our mean age is around 30 years. Right, so it's around 30 years, mean age, 30.9 years. So this was in 2021. So we have a more of youthful population, that is nice. But according to data especially released from the CMIE, again an independent think tank, they have identified that this youthful population is actually not getting employed. So the share of population in employment between the age group of 15 to 29, their employment has come down. So 15 years to 29, their employment has come down from 25% to 17%. And people above the age of 45 years, their share of employment has actually increased from 37 to 49%. Now you see this situation, it's not a good situation, right? More of youthful population is not able to get employment. That is one observation. Other, we can say it's maybe they are not interested, maybe they are not participating in the labor force. So this is a paradoxical situation for the country. This is not a desirable situation because we want the youth to be employed. If they do not employ, if they are not employed, they will get into negative activities. It may lead from demographic dividend, we may get into a demographic nightmare. We may have more political unrest. We have seen actually. So in the recent times, and in fact, if you want, you can take the example of Libya, you can take the example of Jammu and Kashmir. So it's the places where demographic dividend is there, jobs are not there, Arab Spring. So these are not good situations. Now talking about this paradox over here, so obviously there are two possibilities of youth not getting employed. So one is youth unemployment. So this may be attributed to lack of skills. Maybe they are not job ready, the educational institutions, etc., not able to skill. There is a gap between what is being taught and what is being required in the market. There is a naturally lack of jobs. We can also say lack of formal sector jobs. And these days, one more thing is that when we talk about youth, education attainment has increased. With education attainment, expectations of higher package, better quality of life, so those are there. So youth is less willing to compromise on job. So that is one reason that youth may actually fall out of the job market in order to upskill. So one is youth unemployment, lack of jobs and skills. So that is youth is not able to get jobs. The other is that youth is not satisfied and they are not. Now, labor force participation rate is released by the NSO. The formula is persons employed plus persons unemployed. That is, or we can say labor force also, divided by working age population. We can also say the people who are willing to get employed. So on the numerator side, that also we can say. Okay, so that is labor force participation rate that is coming down. So this may be attributed to people investing in higher education. So obviously, if you are invested in higher education, applying for civil services, all that, it delays your availability into the employment market. Lack of preferred jobs, that is one of the reasons. Then labor force participation rate amongst women is coming down. In fact, it is one of the lowest in the world. Then many people are taking mid-career break, right? So these are certain issues with reference to labor force participation rate. Now, I would like to add one more point, and that is coming from the data that is released. They're saying that, yes, all these factors are true. That there is one more important factor is that the experienced people, the people above at this age group, so the aged or employed people, are not allowing for the new entrants to settle into the jobs. They're elbowing out the new entrants. That is the word, the expression used, elbowing out. So that may be because, more and more of IT, so skill is more important. Skill with age that comes, experience that comes, they're much more as compared to the new youth that is coming in. So the productivity, the higher pay plus productivity more than offsets for employing more of youthful population. That may be one reason that I am only saying it. Okay, so this is one theme with reference to the India's aging workforce, which is aging. So that is one thing. I would like to draw your attention to another issue. See, at present, we have a demographic dividend. Imagine this is the youthful bulge that we have at the moment, and the elderly population, it is narrowing, right? Because we have more youthful population. Now, if we construct this further, we will see that this aging population will move up in years to come. Those people who are between the age group of 15, the youth 30 years population, 30-year age. So this bulge will go up. Population is not being added at that rate. Fertility rate is coming down. It is at around 2.1%. And so less population is coming. It's not at the replacement rate. If it was at 2.2, it would be similar to what youthful is there. So exact population would have been replaced. So less population is coming in to replace the youthful population. The youthful population in next 30 years, 20 years will be elderly population, 50, 60 years of age. So they have to be supported by this working age population. So this would mean that the state has to spend more on education, more on healthcare, welfare schemes, etc. So there'll be more burden now. We will have demographic burden rather than demographic dividend in the next 20 years. So what arrangements should be made beforehand? So that is a theme, that's the policy, that you should focus for your mains answer writing as well. So I've given you two ideas, one in the newspaper, the second I'm adding over here. Okay. BRICS might have been, so BRICS has been a disappointment, says Pratap Bhanu Mehta. So I have jotted down the points. So BRICS was seen as an aspiration. It started in 2009. It was seen as a great alternative. It was saying that these are the next emerging countries. It's not the age of now US, USSR, etc. So this is the new future. This was based on the study of Goldman Sachs. It was seen as an alternative mode of development. It was seen that when recessions were going on, these countries, especially India, China, they were growing at a rapid pace. Brazil also. Further, so this summit was formed in 2009. Then there was this, it was seen as a voice of the global south. It was seen as an alternative of the developing world against the developed countries. It was seen as a unified as a face of the global south. It was representing the interest of the developing countries. Okay. It was, as I told you, it was the engine of sustained economic growth, and it was seen as a balance against the West. In fact, here we can say that there are certain issues with, let's say, the World Bank and the IMF. So the BRICS created the new development bank and the contingency reserve agreement, which are very similar to each other, but more focus on the developing countries. Likewise, the credit rating agency is also stipulated. So credit rating agency, the West has this, most US, etc. has this credit rating agencies like Moody's, etc. It is believed that it keeps in interest of the developed countries, advanced economies as against the developing countries. So alternatives are being created. But BRICS is seen to be a disappointment. it is saying it's felt that BRICS is nothing organic. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they are not developing countries. They're at different stages of development. China and India are not at the same stage of development. Both may be third world countries, but China has gone well past. It compares itself into the league of the US. Okay. Russia is a developed first world country. Russia has different challenges. It doesn't share the interests of the developing countries. And they are continents apart, except for, Russia, India, China is there, but Brazil and South Africa are different continents altogether. So they are different stage of development. They are politically, their differences are there. Russia and China today, they are very close, but they have differences, major differences. And there are concerns because Russia, China is emerging as a superpower. Russia feels challenged. Okay. India and China relationship is not good. Right. So there are fault lines between the countries. In fact, today I'll tell you, BRICS is saying that we will expand on China's behest. So China wants that BRICS should expand, and it wants to have countries catering to the interest of China. It wants to bring in those members. So it will actually sideline India's interests. So there are political differences, and ideologically speaking, India democracy, Russia believes in the communist ideology, China is in a different league. So there are differences, ideological and political differences. Then the fear of being hijacked by China, as I told you, the expansion of BRICS, new member countries. So that is India is concerned about it. Then China is saying that we should push for the Chinese currency. India is not comfortable with that. Okay. And today, BRICS is nowhere, actually, in reality, BRICS is nowhere an alternative to the West. If today anything has to be done, be it with reference to climate change, we have to find new solutions. This is what the author is saying. It is left to the US and China. So China may provide techno solutions while US may provide for the funding, etc. It is for these two countries to work together and on many other issues of the world today. So BRICS is not really an alternative. It is not filling the expectations. It's a big disappointment. Please don't use the word, that's from the author, but yes. And further, BRICS is not the non-aligned movement. It is nowhere as what the non-aligned movement was there. Non-aligned movement was different. It was when the world was divided into two world blocks, two power blocks, the US and USSR. So the newly decolonized countries were being asked to join either of the blocks. And at that time, NAM came where it was a third alternative to and not getting into the Cold War politics of US and USSR. So this is not nowhere close as NAM. But interestingly, this theme has been resonated in this article also. I think we should prepare on this also, that BRICS is no NAM, right? The comparison between BRICS and NAM is something that should be prepared. You should not get a surprise in the shocker in the exam. Okay. What next now? Mapping long COVID. Okay. I think this is not really about exam. It's just about awareness. So Indian Council of Medical Research has said that 6.5% of the people, especially people who were infected by the Delta variant, so the next year of hospitalization, they died. So there are after effects of COVID, and therefore it is being said as long COVID. Okay. WHO estimates, based on the European studies, they estimate that 10 to 20% of the COVID patients developed prolonged symptoms such as fatigue, breathlessness, cognitive abnormalities. Cognitive means thinking, right? So cognitive abnormalities and brain fog. And this is irrespective of the severity of the infection or the patient's age. Further, people associated with COVID have been linked with cardiac issues, heart-related ailments. And this is more so with people affected with the variants before the Omicron variant. Omicron variant did not affect your lungs. Actually, it was more of the throat. Okay, resisting landslides. So this he is a professor. He is the director of the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology. It's in Dehradun. Okay. So he's first telling us about the reasons for the landslides. I've marked it in yellow, and his suggestions are marked in green. So he's saying reworking of tectonic plates, Himalayan plate, the Indian plate and the Asian plates, the two plates merged together led to the emergence of the fold mountains known as Himalayas. So it's an unstable area because the borders of the two tectonic plates are there. So Himalayas, by its very nature, is going to be unstable. Plus, they are young mountains, so they are not consolidated as yet as compared to other mountains of the country and the world. Further rainfall, precipitation, glacial burst, all these factors further accentuates the issue of landslides. There are steep slopes, so slope instabilities also lead to landslides. Right, so it's very easy to get the issue pointers. Now let us come to the suggestions. So he's saying first we should have landslide warning system, right? So landslide warning system should be there. It needs to be developed. For this, we can use rain gauge, measurement of rain, piezometer, inclinometer, measuring incline, of course, angle of the slope, extensometer, etc. So first time we are getting these facts actually, right? So you can note these. So landslide warning system based on this. So early warning system should be there. And with this, I would like to integrate this point that we should focus on town planning, keeping in mind the stability and concerns of the mountains, ecological concerns of the mountains. Further, the towns mapping, etc., should be done in high resolution. So we should have high resolution imagery so that we know in advance that if something wrong is or untoward is going to take place, we have prior information. So these points are related actually: landslide warning, town planning, and high resolution mapping. Besides, he's saying that we should have a council of Himalayan states. So we have this Punjab, maybe a Himalayan part of it. Himachal is there, Uttarakhand is there, Jammu and Kashmir is there, at least in the northwestern part. Then we obviously have northeastern also. So these we can have a council of Himalayan states which work together on the issue of landslides and Himalaya-related disasters. Right? They should be sharing data. They should be meeting time to time so that if cooperation is required, and howsoever cooperation is required, that can be done. Okay. And lastly, socio-economic development should be done in lines with the interest of the ecological concerns. Okay. The new laws, same system. So we have this updated Indian Penal Code, which is now known as Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. Then we have the CRPC, which is now Bharat Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita. Right, so these two are being referred. So senior advocate is saying it. Let's see what his points are. He's saying that IPC, first of all, which is now Bharat Nyaya Samhita, has done laudable efforts, but there are certain concerns. It has brought in new crimes, new offenses such as fake news, terrorism, so basically fake news, organized crime and corruption. So new additions have been made to crimes. But at the same time, it does not repeal the special laws that cover these offenses. POTA, TADA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, all those. It does not repeal those. So you bring in laws, IT Act is there. So you bring in laws, but which deal with this new IPC, new BNS, but do not remove the old laws, which obviously are more stringent. Secondly, sedition has been removed. Sedition, which was under section 124A of the IPC, but reintroduced in section 150 of BNS. So it has been reintroduced, adding the element of intention. That is one intended to create violence. So again, intention is a vague word actually. That is the problem. Now coming to the CRPC or BNSS, Bharat Nagrik Suraksha Samita. So they are saying that it brought in the issue of video conferencing and e-filing of FIR. So these reforms are there, e-filing of FIR and video conferencing. But it does not provide for the safeguards for the people who are detained or detainees. So it provides for sentence bargaining, but does not offer to plead to a lesser offense. Then it says that police has the option to seek custody for 40 to 60 days, which effectively negates the right to bail. Imagine you being in custody for 40 to 60 days, police custody, when crime is not proven, you are then in the jail. Police has taken you to the lockup and you are in jail for 40 to 60 days when you have not committed a crime. 40, it's about 2 months. So even by colonial standards, even the colonial masters frowned the 15-day police custody. We have extended this to 40 to 60 days. Then the new Evidence Act has been changed, known as the Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam. So Evidence Act is now known as Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam. So this has fine-tuned provisions, keeping in mind, the judgments of the various Supreme Court, High Court, etc., judicial judgments. So in line with that, the Evidence Act has been changed. Evidence law has been changed. International news now. Trump is going to go to jail. Ex-president. So Trump sent to surrender in court tomorrow. Okay. So Donald Trump is accused of trying to overturn his re-election. He did not get re-elected in 2020, so that is one. Second, as president, he was privy to some private, personal, official secretive information, which he was supposed to hand over to the next president and declare that he has that. So that he did not do. He withheld that information with himself. So on those grounds, actually, there are 4 cases against him. So yeah, so he's going to jail. Starting tomorrow, treated Fukushima water to enter sea. So Fukushima was in Japan. It was a nuclear plant. There was a blast that took place, not really a nuclear blast, but a blast took place, and Japan from there on decided that they are going to close all their nuclear plants and move to conventional sources of energy like thermal power plants, coal-based power plants. And given that how unstable the plate is, where geography, according to where Japan is, it might make sense also. Okay, now with this happening, especially from Fukushima, where the blast took place because the sea water had emerged into the nuclear facility. So this water is infected. Water has exposure to radiation. Now this water has to be discharged into the sea. So the date has come. So with the discharge, of course, the neighboring countries are not happy, particularly South Korea and China. Now here Japan is saying that this has been investigated by the IAEA. It's an International Atomic Energy Agency, UN watchdog, although it's not part of the UN, let me tell you. Okay. So this is for atomic energy. And further, it has been found out that the amount of radioactivity in the water is 190 becquerels of tritium per liter. So this is much lesser than WHO prescribed 10,000 becquerels per liter. So this is much lesser than the WHO prescribed. Right. So then it's nothing to worry. Now, what is this term? So this is the unit of radioactivity in the SI system. Now coming to the economy section, safeguards to be brought when exemptions kick in. So this is with reference to the personal data law. So there will be subordinate legislation, that is center will be making laws, making rules, which will bring in restrictions on the central agency eventually. So why not do it at the parliament level? Okay. Inflation is at a high. It is at 7.44%. This is, I'm referring to the CPI combined. So, yes. And then other point that is mentioned in this article is that capital expenditure measures have led to states increasing their capex spending. So these 2 points had to be said. India's GDP likely to be 7.8 to 8.5% in June quarter. I have shared this thing on digitalization. So you have the barriers to digitalization, cybersecurity, integration of new technology, lack of expertise, connectivity issues add to this digital literacy. Right. So companies' feedback have been sought. So yeah, so that's it. You can combine it with digital divide and answer it from the view of GS3. Coming to the explained section. So some facts about Chandrayaan and other moon missions. So first of all, we had Chandrayaan 1, which was launched on 2008. Here, it's interesting. President Abdul Kalam, so he was the president back then, Abdul Kalam, he was asked if tomorrow somebody asks if the mission actually took place, what proof do you have? So he suggested that we should release an instrument that falls on the moon surface. So that happened because of him. Then Chandrayaan 2 was to take place in 2011-12, around this time, with the help of Russia. India was to provide the rocket. This is the rocket. And in the rocket, there was to be the lander. India did not have lander and rover, so Russia was to provide the Luna mission of Russia. It could not happen because that lander initially was bigger. It could not fit in. That was the issue. And when they made that, it could not, it had some technical issues. So India decided that we will make our own lander and rover. So we made Vikram. So this was in 2019 when the launch took place. Okay. Then now we all know about Chandrayaan 3, which has the Vikram lander, because the Vikram lander did not land in Chandrayaan 2. It crashed. So now we have Chandrayaan 3. Let's see what happens. Now the next mission is UPEX and not Chandrayaan. This will be in collaboration with Japan. So that will be known as LUPEX. It will be somewhere in 2024-25. Young Indians, aging workforce. India's unemployment is highest for the youth and often rises with educational attainment. When you have higher education, your expectations from the job market also increases. And honestly, at those levels are difficult to meet in reality. There are less jobs for which education attainment is being given. But it is also one more issue is that they are being cornered by the existing employees, the freshers. So that is again an issue. On Madras Day, August 22 is celebrated as the Madras Day, the story behind the city's founding and name. So this seemed interesting. So, yes. So obviously Chennai was known as Madras. This name changed in 1996. How did, now British, obviously Madras presidency was there. So why did British settle over here? So British initially settled at Masulipatam. That was the preferred site. By the way, Patnam means a city by the port. Patnam or Pattinam. So Masulipatam, it's on the banks of river Krishna. Krishna means Andhra Pradesh. So in 1611. But close to Masulipatam was Palikat, where Dutch were based. So obviously this would have led to conflict between the two. British wanted to play safe. So they decided to move southwards towards the present Tamil Nadu. And this led to the creation of Madras Patnam. Now a new place is to British is identifying this place. They identified this area, not yet named Madras Patnam. Now coming to the name. So one theory is that there was a fisherman known as Madrasan. So, the person who was asked to review a sector, the fisherman told him that it should be named after this fisherman. So therefore, it came to be known as Madras. The other theory is that Madras, in this place, there used to be a madrasa, and next to it, there was a church. So since it was close to the madrasa, it was known as Madre de Deus, name of the church. So because this church was there, it was named such. So this place came to be known as Madras. Last, so this was about Madras. Now about why Chennai? When British was to take place this area was under the control of Vijayanagar Nayaks. Nayaks were the powerful governors under Vijayanagar kingdom. So there was Damarla Venkatpati Nayak, who the chieftain who offered the land to the British, and in honor of his name of his father was Chennappa Nayak. So Chennappa, from Chennappa we get the name Chennai. So Madras becomes